All right, this is the April 18th, 4 p.m. Montgomery Independent School District Board of Trustees special meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. All right. Are there, Ms. Alcantara, I see that we have a few registered public comments. During this time, the board will hear comments from the audience only during this public comment portion. Individuals wishing to speak must have their name added to the public comment sign-up sheet prior to the start of the board meeting. We will allow 30 minutes max for the public comments. Therefore, the board will allot 5 minutes for tonight's public comments per speaker. Each speaker will be given that time, and I will give a 1-minute warning in that time frame. Please respect the privacy of others and refrain from identifying student, employee, or community members by name. Board requests that comments on any subject, whether positive or negative, be courteous and respectful and related to the agenda for this special meeting. Disruption of the meeting will not be tolerated at any time. All right, so first up, I would like to call Callie Thomas of Montgomery County, Texas.
Hi, I wanted to speak on behalf of Krista Tatum. I met Krista when she was assigned to my class in the 2019-20 school year. I taught second grade at that time, and she was my co-teacher. She came into my classroom to serve special education students that needed in-class support. She was amazing at reviewing their IEPs, individualized education plans, also their 504s, which provided different accommodations for just depending on what they needed to meet their learning needs, in a way that each child was able to be successful in the gen ed setting and have their learning goals addressed. When COVID happened, we began teaching remotely, and we continued to have to collaborate and work very closely together in very creative ways to provide meaningful education to all of our students. I've always been very impressed at the professionalism and knowledge that Ms. Tatum has in meeting the needs of students with specialized learning goals. She has an amazing ability to connect personally with her students. Her calm and positive demeanor and ability to establish a quick rapport with staff and students made her an asset to our school. She was then, of course, promoted because of her skills and her background and her training, in which we were all very proud for her to be able to move up. I currently am still a co-teach classroom teacher in the first grade. I have many students in my class with IEPs, with 504s, transfer students that I've just recently received. One in particular with written violent tendencies. He came to me. We knew he had violent tendencies. He's currently being evaluated to be put into a different program in the district because gen ed is not the proper placement for him. I've never, in my 7 years of teaching, had any specialized training for teaching co-teach class, for having special ed students in my class, whether they have 504s, whether they have IEPs, behavior intervention plans, and I've seen all of it through my years. I've never received or been offered to take the CPI training, which this year I am finding that that training would have been very helpful in, finding ways to help this new student with many of his severe behaviors. Recently, I did have to evacuate my first grade class because of this particular student. He was throwing things across the room at me, at other students. He was screaming vulgar profanities that you cannot even imagine coming out of a 6-year-old's mouth, refusing to follow directives and whatnot. And because I didn't have that training to, if it continued to escalate, I was scared for the other students in my class, so I quickly sent them to another classroom so they would be safe until admin could come and help and remove him properly. But I wanted to come here to speak today because I think Ms. Tatum was a wonderful asset to Montgomery. She certainly has been to Stewart Creek Elementary, to all of her peers and the students that she has served. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Miss Lisa Petticord of Montgomery County, Texas.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am here just to speak on behalf of Krista Tatum. I've worked closely with her. We've shared an office at Stewart Creek Elementary for 2 years. I respect her as an educator as well as a person. At work, she's a respected professional and a team player. She's advised me on numerous occasions on how to deal with specific student behaviors, and her advice was effective. As Callie said, I have not been trained to deal with those kind of behaviors myself, and Krista had been, and I depended on her and leaned on her for advice. Her students loved her. They didn't miss her. They write her notes they send through me to her to let her know they miss her and they love her. She had a great rapport with those students. Outside of work, Krista's a great friend. She's supportive and encouraging, and she's someone you can count on. She's also a great mom, and I've had the privilege to get to know her son and to spend time with the two of them together and see them interact. We spend a lot of time together. Additionally, she's a good Christian woman. She has morals, character, and integrity. I feel that I know Krista well, professionally as well as personally, and I can say with conviction that I do not believe that she is capable of intentionally doing harm to any child, anyone for that matter. She is an asset to me personally, and I think she's an asset to the district with all that she brings to the table with her rapport with the students and with staff. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next, Holly Harris of Montgomery County, Texas.
I also work at Stewart Creek Elementary, and everything that Callie and Lisa have said are things that I feel deeply in my heart also. I don't have a lot to say because they've already said it. She is a truly kind person. She's smart. She's been a mentor to me. And my prayer for Krista is to be judged truthfully. She has worked for MISD with integrity, compassion, and leaves a legacy of love to and from the children she has served. When she came back for a visit, the children crowded around her like the Pied Piper and could not let go of her. We still put a picture on the table when they take tests so they can look at Miss Tatum. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Larissa Rodriguez of Montgomery, Texas.
Members of the board, I would like to address the current issues in Montgomery Independent School District, specifically in handling the situation with Ms. Krista Tatum. The district goals appear to have honorable intentions, but have not been executed properly, starting with the first goal on MISD.org, academic achievement. Though some students of MISD are greatly accomplished in academics, other students that are more difficult to reach are neglected by the school system. These students often have great potential achievable if assisted as they should be. The teacher of the student in the situation involving Ms. Tatum exclusively plays board games and other activities of similar nature with him, an intelligent child with behavioral issues, because it is easier. How is that aiming for the goal of academic achievement? This student will not learn the skills needed to accomplish what I hope the district, his teachers, and his parents want for him. Regarding the district's website's second goal of school safety, would it not make sense for the safety of the school students and staff to come first? If the occupants of the school do not feel safe, how are they supposed to perform to their greatest potential living in fear? Academic achievement suffers in a dangerous environment. Violence affects people of all ages, especially children. When students have a violent classmate, not only those who are physically affected suffer. A violent classmate also affects many students' mental health and also severely impedes learning in the classroom. I personally have been infected by a violent peer. It took what may have been an attempt on someone's life for the student to be reprimanded past a detention. This classmate had been exhibiting violent behavior for almost 2 years. There were some days I did not want to go to school in fear of my safety or even my life. Most people feared him for a good reason. I still have nightmares about this person to this day, 2 years later, still fearing that he will harm my peers or I. A violent student also heavily impacts their teachers. Teachers are responsible for the safety of the children in their classroom. If there is a violent student in their classroom, the teacher is not only responsible for the safety of other students, but the violent one as well. This puts the teacher in danger and can make them fear what is to come in their classroom. The teacher also has to prepare for classroom disruptions due to a violent student. When a plan for evacuation of a classroom is needed due to a violent student, should that not be a cause for concern? When the student in question became violent with Ms. Tatum, she did her best with the knowledge, resources, and training that she had. On February 10th, teacher and assistant baseball coach Michael Schott was chased and attacked by middle school students at Langham Creek High School in Cypress Fairbanks ISD. This ordeal resulted in Schott's arm being broken, as well as 4 students in custody. In October, an 18-year-old female attacked a disabled teacher in Louisiana. This assault landed the teacher in a hospital and the student in jail with felony charges. In Florida, on March 2nd, a teacher was rolled out of an elementary school on a stretcher after being assaulted by a 5-year-old student. Ms. Tatum could have been seriously injured if she did not take the actions that she did when the student became violent toward her. As this country has seen all too many times, these violent students can cause serious damage. This has been exhibited in school shootings often. Though it is an extreme, it is getting more and more prevalent. Many of the perpetrators exhibited violent behavior throughout their school careers. This needs to be stopped. Violent students need to be disciplined for all violent actions, no matter the gravity of the situation.
1 minute remaining.
When students have exhibited violent behavior multiple times, they should receive a mental health check as well as counseling if deemed necessary by a professional, in order to keep the students and staff around that student safe. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And our last registered public comment is Ms. Tanya Rodriguez of Montgomery, Texas.
This is a continuation of Larissa's speech. She had a rather long speech. She was pretty passionate about this subject. We're proceeding to finance and operations. MISD has put a very large educational bond for vote. In the state of Texas, according to Niche, the school district with the closest number of students above MISD is Waxahachie ISD, and the one with the closest number of students below MISD is Huntsville ISD. In 2021, both HISD and WISD proposed a $127 million bond. Huntsville's bond was passed and Waxahachie's bond was rejected. The proposed MISD bond is over double that of these school districts compared to the size of MISD, being $326.9
Ms. Rodriguez, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yes.
If you have registered to speak on behalf of Krista Tatum, not the school bond. Please get to the point of your argument on behalf of Ms. Tatum.
Okay.
As this is a special meeting, that is our request.
All right. All right, we'll go on to the district goals meeting on MISD on the goal on MISD.org is human capital. That seems to denote staff mere investment instead of human beings. Rather demeaning, a quick internet search of the term will give you a long history of how controversial and offensive the term is being. Okay, and as what you're saying, okay, MISD teachers are okay, I'm trying to skip over things that I think you will not find relevant. Okay, MISD teachers are, we need teachers to help the young people gain as much knowledge as possible during their developmental stages. One would think that warrants staff to be treated well, considering how important the school staff is. They need proper training. MISD has failed to give Ms. Tatum training when she has asked. It is simple to infer that this has happened in more instances than just Ms. Tatum's. Quoted, the workplace culture of MISD is one of the positivity, collaboration, and trust. Unfortunately, we hear over and over again that this is quite the opposite of the truth. Backs are turned on teachers at the first sight of conflict. Specifically in Ms. Tatum's situation, they have had been nothing but uncooperative. When asking for help to perform her job at a higher standard, Ms. Tatum rarely was obliged. ISD has completely betrayed Ms. Tatum's trust, along with many others. MISD's website claimed they will be recruiting, hiring, growing, and retaining high-quality educators and employees in order to accomplish their goals. If the board decides to terminate Ms. Tatum's employment, they are doing the exact opposite of this. Ms. Tatum is a kind, dynamic educator with a passion for helping her students, and it would be to your detriment to lose her. As a current, and this is in Larissa's terms, as a current high school student that has lived in Montgomery for 14 of my 17 years, I'm very disappointed with MISD's shortcomings regarding this situation. Thank you for your time and your service to MISD. Sincerely, Larissa Rodriguez.
Thank you. That is all of our registered public comment speakers. Next on our agenda is the recommendation from our superintendent to terminate the probationary contract of Special Education Counselor Krista Tatum. Dr. Morrison.
Thank you, Dr. Fuller. Before the board considers the recommendation and record of the independent hearing officer for the Texas Education Agency regarding the proposed termination and suspension without pay pending discharge for good cause of Special Education Counselor Krista Tatum, I am recommending the board terminate the probationary contract of the Special Education Counselor Krista Tatum at the end of the contract term. I am making this recommendation in the best interest of the district based on information we have recently discovered about a material omission on her employment application, failing to list employment in a district immediately prior to coming to Montgomery ISD, where there was documented performance issues. This material omission and other factors form the basis of my recommendation.
Board, we will adjourn to closed session to discuss this recommendation. The time is 4:21. And we will be back shortly. We are returning from closed session for the first matter that we discussed on our agenda. The time is 4:36. Ladies and gentlemen, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to terminate the probationary contract of Special Education Counselor Krista Tatum at the end of the contract term in the best interest of the district. Is there a second? Mr. Hopkins seconds. Okay, we will be doing this via roll call vote. Mr. Hopkins, how do you vote? Mr. Hopkins votes yes. Ms. Turner? Ms. Turner votes aye. Mr. Hammonds? Mr. Hammonds votes yes. Ms. Porton?
Yes.
Ms. Porton votes yes. Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby votes yes. Mr. Dennison?
Yes.
Mr. Dennison votes yes. I vote yes. That carries unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, that vote is settled. Next on our agenda, we will be focusing now on the TEA docket number 022LH-12-2021, proposed termination and suspension without pay pending discharge of good cause. At this point, we will be adjourning to closed session. I will call the involved parties in once we get the variety of technology aspects set up. So ladies and gentlemen, please hold on. The time is now 4:39. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are returning from closed session. The time is 5:34 p.m. Members of the board, we're being asked to hold on 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Members of the board, I would like to move that after due consideration of the record, matters officially noticed, and the recommended findings of fact and conclusions of law, we, the Board of Trustees of the Montgomery Independent School District, hereby adopt the independent hearing examiner's findings of fact and conclusions of law in their entirety, and that Krista Tatum is terminated and suspended without pay pending discharge for good cause, effective immediately. Is there a second? Mr. Hopkins seconds. Mr. Hopkins, we will start with you with a roll call vote. Mr. Hopkins, how do you vote? Mr. Hopkins votes aye. Ms. Turner? Aye. Ms. Turner votes aye. Mr. Hammonds? Aye. Mr. Hammonds votes aye. Ms. Porton?
Aye.
Ms. Porton votes aye. Mr. Kirby?
Aye.
Mr. Kirby votes aye. Mr. Dennison?
Aye.
Mr. Dennison votes aye. And I vote aye. Before we take a moment, I would like to take a moment to comment before we adjourn. I'm disappointed that we are here today for this purpose. The safety and security of every student in MISD is of utmost importance, and we strive to provide an excellent educational program to every student, every one of our students. As educators, our highest obligation is ensuring the physical and psychological safety of our students is held to the highest regard. The conduct and lack of judgment that this employee displayed during this incident will never be tolerated in Montgomery ISD. I also feel compelled to comment on how I am proud of this district for how they've handled this unfortunate incident. MISD immediately and thoroughly investigated the concern and thereafter, as appropriate, engaged in prompt remedial action in response to this investigation. Ms. Tatum was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the district's investigation, and every action within the school district's legal authority to hold Ms. Tatum accountable has been taken. The district reported Ms. Tatum to the State Board of Educator Certification to file a report of employee misconduct. SBEC is currently undergoing their own investigation. Additionally, the district immediately notified both Child Protective Services and the district attorney. At the direction of the superintendent, our chief of police remained in communication with both agencies several times, offering to provide any additional evidence or testimony needed for their investigations. As you know, the district ultimately has no authority over the outcome of these investigations. Following the investigation, our superintendent, Dr. Morrison, recommended termination and suspension without pay, pending of Ms. Tatum's employment contract during a public board meeting in November, in which this board unanimously approved. Ms. Tatum requested a hearing through the Texas Education Agency to contest the board's proposed action to terminate her contract of employment, as she has a contractual and statutory right to do. The hearing has now concluded. The board has considered the recommendation of the independent hearing examiner who presided over the hearing and ruled overwhelmingly in favor of the district. With this vote, the board sends a clear message that the expectation it holds for how employees of this district treat students and what will not be tolerated. Throughout this process, the district has strived to be responsive to the family of the student. District personnel, including the superintendent, has spent countless hours working on matters associated with this incident and the employee's appeal. The district has been unwavering in its efforts to ensure this employee would be held accountable for her actions within the employment realm that is under their control. Again, while we have no jurisdiction over the DA or what CPS does, we do get to determine with this vote what standards we uphold in MISD. Board, with your action today, I know that we're moving closer to resolving this unfortunate chapter, both for this family and our school district, as it is our privilege to serve every student in this district. As no further items are included on the agenda, I hereby adjourn this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a technical issue. Board members, prior to me starting the vote, this microphone did not record our vote, and as it's the only one currently recording the vote, I need to, for the record, ask you to vote once more. So, ladies and gentlemen, the motion language: I move, after due consideration of the record, matters officially noticed, and the recommended findings of fact and conclusions of law, we, the Board of Trustees of the Montgomery Independent School District, hereby adopt the independent hearing examiner's finding of fact and conclusions of law in their entirety, and that Krista Tatum is terminated and suspended without pay pending discharge for good cause, effective immediately. Is there a second? Mr. Hopkins seconds. Mr. Hopkins, how do you vote? Aye. Mr. Hopkins votes aye. Ms. Turner, how do you vote? Aye. Ms. Turner votes aye. Mr. Hammonds, how do you vote? Aye. Mr. Hammonds votes aye. Ms. Porton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Porton votes aye. Mr. Kirby, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kirby votes aye. Mr. Dennison, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Dennison votes aye, and I vote aye as well. That motion unanimously carries. And with no additional information on our agenda, I hereby conclude and adjourn this meeting.